Have you heard of the year 2025 problem? It's something that's talked about in Japan as an issue that is expected to have various troubling social effects. Japan is among the most aging countries in the world today. According to the latest data from 2023, 29.1% of the Japanese population is aged 65 or above. The 2025 problem involves the effects of this aging society, such as labor shortages and the collapse of the social security system. How is Japan dealing with this problem? In this video, we'll look at the 2025 problem and how it will affect one of the most aging countries in the world, Japan. On this channel, we'll cover some of the lesser-known topics of Japanese culture. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe. Before explaining the 2025 problem, let's look at how Japan is becoming a country of aging people and few children. In the latter 1940s, after the end of World War II, Japanese society regained stability and the country had its first baby boom. As a result, at its peak, Japan had 2.7 million births per year and the population continued growing. Furthermore, when the baby boom generation reached adulthood in the 1970s, the birth rate again rose with the second baby boom. Around this time, the country's population topped 100 million and continued to grow until 2010. However, in the latter half of the 1970s, the birth rate began to drop and a future of low birth rates became apparent. In addition, the country's economic slowdown and late marriage age, along with growing life expectancy, indicated that the trend would not stop. The current birth rate is around 800,000 per year, less than one-third of what it was at its peak. And as mentioned earlier, the percentage of those over 65 is 29.1%. This is the second highest in the world after Monaco's 35% rate. But Monaco only has a population of 40,000, many of whom are affluent seniors migrating from other countries, so the situation is very different from Japan. With its 100 million population and few immigrants, Japan's aging society is unlike that of anywhere else in the world. This aging population is bringing 2025 to the forefront as a topic of concern in Japan. It encompasses the many issues that arise as the first baby boomers born in the latter 1940s pass the age of 75, defined in Japan as elderly. According to information from the Japanese government, the population of people over 75 in 2025 will reach 21,800,000, and those between 64 and 74 will reach 15 million. This means that 1 in 3 people in Japan will be over 65, and 1 in 5 will be over the age of 75. The first major effect of this will be a labor shortage. Japan has long had a mandatory retirement age. This was initially set at 55, but since the 1980s, when the aging population was recognized as an issue, that age has been gradually raised to sustain the labor force. Currently, companies are mandated to retain employees until the age of 65. However, because of financial instability, many delay their retirement until 75 and work part-time. They don't fully retire until 75. It's also notable that Japan has many people running businesses into their 70s, so they too do not retire until 75. In other words, the baby boomers who brought about the country's economic expansion will also retire in 2025. The result will be a serious labor shortage. By one company's calculations, there will be a shortfall of some 5 million workers. This is expected to impact the operation of many companies, but even worse than that, there is the possibility that it will overload the existing social infrastructure and medical system. Japan's public transport and commercial transport industries are already facing shortages in drivers and other operations. Starting from 2020, the country has seen numerous reductions and closures in bus and railway services, especially in regional cities. Japan has traditionally not treated its bus and railway drivers well, and finding new staff is difficult. And because businesses are based on such operating practices, they are reluctant to improve their treatment of workers. As a result, they end up closing down, leading to loss of livelihood for many. This problem also affects the tourism industry. With the end of the worldwide pandemic, Japan hopes to regain its foreign tourists, but there aren't enough taxi drivers. Until now, Japan has restricted rideshare services in order to protect taxi businesses, but the shortage of taxi drivers has led to discussion of allowing some limited ride-sharing services. This is hoped to solve the shortage of transport employees. The 2025 problem will also greatly affect medical services. As the population ages and the working population shrinks, the medical industry will have fewer workers to service more patients. This is because the elderly have more health problems. Japan already has a problem of lacking hospitals that can accept emergency patients due to staff shortages. This is expected to only get worse. There is another aspect of medical care that is expected to be seriously affected by the 2025 problem. This is the way Japan's social security system works. In Japan, medical insurance, long-term care insurance, and old age pensions are all provided under a social security system, and most of the funding for those services comes from social security payments from the general population. However, due to the aging population, the balance of the cost and intake is crumbling, and the system is facing collapse. The cost of Japan's social security costs, which was around $130 billion in 1980, according to OECD figures, has ballooned to $900 billion at present. A major cause of this is the increase in national pension payments to the aged and the rising cost of medical services received by them. This healthcare system, combined with cultural practices, are causing costs to shoot up. In Japan, as a rule, those over the age of 75 only pay 1/10 of their medical costs, and the national health plan covers the raise. Many such people exploit that low cost to go to hospitals even if they are not ailing, just so they can be in a shared space among others of their age. For the elderly who have retired from their former positions in society, isolation and loneliness can be a major issue. For them, a hospital is a place where they can meet and socialize with others for just a few dollars as payment for medical treatment. In addition, most Japanese hospitals are privately operated. As a result, many hospitals are run as businesses and push for treatment plans that keep their patients coming back to the hospital as much as possible. These practices and rules are ratcheting up health insurance costs. Also, Japanese law does not allow voluntary euthanasia. Even if a patient is ill to the point of being permanently bedridden, treatment must continue, and 90% of that cost comes from Social Security. This problem of Japan's social security costs is a complex one with various approaches, but a fair number of people are of the opinion that euthanasia should be allowed if the patient wishes. But there have been no moves to change the law in this respect. So as social security costs inflate, the number of workers to bear that cost decreases. The Japanese government has taken steps, as previously noted, to change the retirement system and improve working conditions for women, but the trend isn't changing. Currently, for every elderly person in the population, there are 2 working-age people, but in 2025, when the number of 75-year-olds suddenly increases and pension and medical costs are expected to rise, this trend will accelerate, increasing the load on the working population. Currently in Japan, about 48% of an employee's earnings go to Social Security and taxes, but as the population ages, this rate is expected to increase even more. Japan will probably face these major problems even beyond the 2025 problem. The Japanese government has come up with several plans to tackle the 2025 problem. There have been ongoing measures to rein in the growing cost of Social Security. The existing system provided appropriate payments to those with low income, but many said it prioritized the elderly population too much. So, from 2022, those aged 75 or over, but with a certain level of income, are charged 20% of their medical costs instead of 10%. Until then, the government feared the reaction from the elderly who make up a large fraction of the population and avoided raising their fees, but recent moves are placing more of the cost back on those who do not need Social Security that much. In addition, for the shortage of medical and care workers, there have been plans to improve working conditions through funding assistance from the government. And as previously stated, for the shortage of public transport workers, there is finally talk about introducing limited ride-sharing. Japan is facing a crisis of an aging population to a degree that has never been seen in the world. This is a problem that many economically advanced countries will likely face in the future. There will be a great deal of focus on how Japan deals with these problems. What do you think of this problem? On this channel, we'll cover some of the lesser-known topics of Japanese culture. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe. We'll see you again next time.